Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, you think about schools. I mean, that's a big community, and to be able to break that down so kids like feel seen and heard, it gives them somebody to kind of talk to and bounce some things off of. That's not a traditional teacher. So the roles of mentoring, I mean, they're worth $1 million, you know. And you think about teachers, like we all go to 4-year school, we play the school game. Sometimes that works for most kids. Some kids just like, that's not for me and I don't see myself, so I don't really connect with you. So it's important to like value all occupations and all people, because everybody needs somebody, but you can't be everything to one person. Right. You know what I mean? Like everybody needs to find a place to like go, yeah, I think I could do that, or that might be kind of interesting. I think I could have fun with that. I might be kind of good at it. Right?
Yeah.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reiss and Mark Benzer.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode 113 of the Buffalo Community Podcast. I'm Mark Benzer.
I'm Tyler Reiss.
And we have with us... I was going to say back by popular demand, but this is your like debut.
This is it.
On the Buffalo Community Podcast as requested by the fans. Kris Thompson, assistant principal at Buffalo High School. Thank you for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me.
We haven't played the voicemail for you yet, but just give a short little introduction of who you are, what do you do, and then we're going to say, you know, somebody nominated you, say, hey, you should have her in here.
Okay. Well, Kris Thompson, Buffalo resident since '93. So it's been a couple years, coming up to 30 years in Buffalo. This is my first job right out of college. It was going to be just a short little stop, and I was going to go on to coach college basketball, and it quickly became home. Yeah, you guys sucked me in.
Yeah.
So started as a phy ed teacher, health teacher, and I was able to coach volleyball, basketball, and even softball for a little stint. And then my husband ended up being the head baseball coach, so we kind of had to start playing every other season. But, yeah, and now I'm an assistant principal. I'm at the high school and with Phoenix Learning Center. So
very, very fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a great career. I'm very, very lucky. Yeah.
So, not too long ago, we launched our Google Voice number, which is if you want to be part of the Buffalo Community Podcast or give any suggestions of topics or guests, you can call 612-405-7993. But we're going to play the one. This is our first time playing somebody's voicemail. So, Colleen, thanks for messaging in to us. But we're going to play it. Hopefully, it works and we can hear it on the audio.
Hi, Tyler. This is Colleen Ernesty calling, and I would like to have Kris Thompson, the assistant principal at the high school, be on your podcast. She's very interesting. She comes from a family of her father went to college for cattle, and she's a basketball star, and she's a great assistant principal, and I just thought it would be great if you had her on. Thank you. If you
Done.
Colleen, thanks for sending that message. We promptly got on it and messaged Kris, and there's one thing that jumps out right to me, besides being a basketball star, everything, College of Cattle.
Yeah. He went to school for animal science. He was on the national championship cattle judging team.
Okay.
So livestock judging. So my dad was a cattle buyer as a, as a man, he's retired now, but he bought cattle for a packing house down in southwest Minnesota, and that's who my dad is. And later they moved to Kansas, and he worked for a very large feedlot down there. He was the director of procurement and sales, so buying calves and selling cattle when they're fat to make a little money. But
sure.
Yeah, I know, right?
I had no idea that was an option. I was like,
it is.
I need to learn more about this.
Right, right. So, like as a kid in the summer, I'd go riding with my dad to different farms, and it's a very interesting subgroup of people. Everything's on your word, handshakes, before contracts, and selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cattle, loading into potbelly semis, and it's crazy.
Back in the good old days.
In the good old days,
that was
you go on to the farmstead and you put on your overshoes and you go out and you walk around and see who's ready and who's not, and And yeah,
That's cool.
it is cool, and it was back before cell phones. And so, when I was along, he'd have to stop at a payphone on the side of the road and call in and see where the market. We had to listen to the market every day, what the futures and fats and feeders.
So you know what that means?
Well, enough to be dangerous, but not enough to tell you what to invest in.
Spring barley. Ooh.
Yeah. Winter wheat.
Winter wheat. Let's see. Yeah, hopefully that can rebound.
Soybeans are at all-time high right now. So I pay attention, but not enough to really know what's going on. Yeah.
Sure.
So that was growing up, Southwest Minnesota.
Southwest Minnesota.
I also believe that I read recently that going back to the basketball star thing, that there might be a Hall of Fame induction that has happened or is happening.
Yeah, it has happened.
Awesome. And that's basically just high school athletic performance, right?
Yeah. So, that was this winter down in Windham. A friend of mine had been kind of bugging me to get my application. They have you fill out a form. It's just weird to fill that stuff out.
So, when you want to be humble, but people are like, hey, you just have to fill it out.
So it was, and it's quite an honor to go back. You guys are in your hometown, to go back to Windham and see old coaches and friends. And my assistant basketball coach, she's just retired and she lives there. And my volleyball coach, he's in the Volleyball Hall of Fame for Minnesota, Ron Windorf. And we went down when he retired, and my sisters flew in because they played volleyball for Ron as well. And so, it's good to go home. It's good to go home and see the people you grew up with, and some of my classmates were there, and I hadn't seen those guys in a long time. And and the local sports reporter, Dayfield, you don't know how much impact you can have on a kid's life. All those little nuances that play into a school. Sure. And just a lot of really good memories in Windham. Yeah.
So I'll ask, what's the connection with Colleen? Friend or just raving fan that knows a lot about you?
Well, I've known Colleen from afar through Haskins, Nikki and Randy. And so I've known that name, and I also had her son as a student when I was a Phi-Ed teacher, and now I have her grandson as a student at BHS. So that's the beauty of being here after 30 years, right? Kids of kids, and look at you guys, right? I was your age, and all of a sudden, your kids are coming through.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to be able to help, problem solve and get kids what they need, and have resources within the community and know people that we can get some things set up. So, she's a pretty neat lady, and Realty is her grandson. He's fantastic.
Cool.
He is, and so we were talking about cattle one day and cuts of beef and marbling, and he's like, I never knew. I'm like, well, a strange, weird fact about me is that my dad was a cattle buyer, and so Colleen had come in at that time, and we were laughing about meat cuts.
Yep.
I took Todd Lubin's animal science course in high school, and so when you're talking about that marbling, I'm like, Dad, let me pick the steaks out this time.
Right.
We got this.
Right.
I took a high school class.
I
took a high school class
I got
20
this,
years
Dad.
ago. I got this.
So that's really fun.
So I guess you mentioned you came to town, you teach Phi-Ed. Was that the plan all along, or was it, I'm going to teach Phi-Ed? Well, you mentioned coaching college sports, but and then all of a sudden now you're an assistant principal. How does that evolve, and what do you miss, and what do you love?
That's a really good question, because it's an evolution. I didn't really know what I wanted to do out of high school. I knew I wanted to play college sports, and so I was lucky. I ended up at Crookston. It was a 2-year school at that time, and I was able to play 3 sports. Didn't go to school a lot, but I played a lot of sports. And my college volleyball basketball coach had gotten a job at Moorhead State, and she said, I'd like to have you come along. So I played volleyball and basketball down there and had a pretty good college career. And my hope was to go back and coach with her and get into that circuit. But, there's something about high school age kids that just, it's so fun to be involved with them at that age. That stage is just, the world is limitless in possibilities, and trying to help kids figure out what they want to do and getting them connected to people who can see this could be an opportunity, and kind of knocking on doors and connecting the dots to be able to find mentors and to, find a path of something that's going to bring them joy and pay the bills, because you got to do both, right?
Yeah.
And you've been, involved in that mentoring piece. I think about you, Tyler, with Phoenix Learning Center. You've been out and have mentored some kids, and we'll get this one on the docket here this year.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, people go, you have, like, my background is, like, crazy. So, like, state fair for clothing construction and a college basketball player, you know, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And if I had teacher and then alternative programming, you know,
Yeah.
it's just kind of all over the place. But I would say the purpose is always the same, like finding things that, like make you happy and helping others find, like, what it is that makes them happy that they can do to make the world better and to, you know, just enjoy it and
Yeah.
get paid. Because,
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day,
You have to.
you have to,
Yep.
but it shouldn't be miserable.
Right.
It should
right.
be something that, like, it makes you smile, like you want to get up in the morning.
An observational comment about Phoenix Learning Center is, you know, as a volunteer, as a teacher, anything like that, you might not feel like you're making a difference until you hear it from somebody else 3 years later saying, so-and-so said this, and it said it had a lasting impact, and you're like, what? Like,
I didn't think they heard me.
yeah, like, you know, so you get to see that every day, and then the evolution of people coming back. You know, it recently heard a story of the kid that came through the program, and he came back, and now he's working for a pretty big communications company. He's like, I just want to say hi and thank you. I'm doing really well. There's nothing wrong. I'm
Yeah.
doing really well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, what a cool story about these programs that, you know, we have available
Right.
in BHM schools. So thanks for taking that up, and it's more of an observational thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, you think about schools, I mean, that's a big community, and to be able to break that down so kids, like, feel seen and heard, it gives them somebody to kind of talk to and bounce some things off of that's not a traditional teacher. So the roles of mentoring, I mean, they're worth $1 million, you know, and you think about teachers, like, we all go to 4-year school, we play the school game. Sometimes that works for most kids. Some kids just like, that's not for me, and I don't see myself, so I don't really connect with you. So it's important to, like, value all occupations and all people,
Yeah.
because everybody needs somebody, but you can't be everything to one person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody needs to find a place to, like, go, yeah, I think I could do that, or that might be kind of interesting. I think I could have fun with that. I might be kind of good at it, right?
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
we will.
back in the late 1900s, when I'm running the halls of BHS, right?
Yeah.
Competitive level team sports.
Right.
And I'm gonna.
Maybe playing a little volleyball?
Yeah, right, exactly. I feel like schools have maybe done a better job, again, correct me if I'm wrong, of non-traditional opportunities and understanding that these could be great options.
They are great options.
And I think there's a little more awareness of that, or maybe not. But
Well, I think it's kind of seeing our own blind spots, because our normal is our normal until you know different. And once you start seeing things differently, it's hard to go back to what you've always done. And so as you ask questions, because, right, the biggest thing is to be curious and find out what it is that they're really wondering about, or they're kind of hungry for and they don't know it. I always say it's like when a kid's tail starts wagging. Like, you see them kind of get a little bit excited, and you're like, okay, we gotta continue on this pathway to see what else we can get figured out. So if you think about, like, alternative school programming, to me is the best. So summer school is going on right now. We've got a living purposely class where they're doing some equine therapy down in Waverly. They're at Camp Ittahoppy today doing ropes course. We got a history class with Miss Hully. She's heading up to Little Falls to the military. There's a historical society up there with a bunch of artillery and weapons. That's, you know, with Camp Ripley. So there's some money, right now after ESSER dollars is what we call it in schools. It's COVID recovery dollars. So it's not local taxpayer dollars. This is federal and state dollars to be able to bring kids back to life. And all of our kids were there today. And there was a kid that was riding his bike, like, as fast as he could to get there. Like, I don't want to miss the bus, right? Because that's important to them. Like, it's giving them a different view outside of, you know, Buffalo proper or Montrose proper or Hanover. You know, it gets them into different parts to see things that might be interesting to you. Yeah, Miss Hully said, she goes, he was so excited. He wanted, like, this is like a dream of his to get into the military. And so the kids get that option to see it come to life.
I would ride a bike to take a class with Mrs. Hully again.
Right.
She might not remember me, but
Somebody will probably call and say, hey,
remember
can
her.
we get her on?
Yeah.
And she's got the voice for this.
Yeah, she's awesome. She was great.
Yeah.
It's really fun hearing hearing those stories. And the words are escaping me right now, but it's with that alternative learning. Just about everybody's had alternative learning.
For sure.
And it seems like any issue that a kid had, or even an adult, a person has had, has been highlighted and magnified over the last 2.5 years. Can you talk a little, we don't want to dwell on COVID or anything, because we're on the tail end of, hey, this is the new normal, but can you bring us on an evolution of, from bam, it hit, bring us an evolution to where it is today, and you said bringing those kids back to life because it's important.
Yeah. Well, it's been hard, right? It's been hard for everybody. And there are some groups that have been hit harder than others. And you look across society, there's several people that were allowed to work from home and they did really well. And it's kind of changed their normal. Are we going back to the office full time? Are we part time? And what does this look like? There's good things that came out of it. Like I think about some meetings that I'm in. I don't have to drive somewhere to go to a meeting. I can hop in. And it's important that I have face-to-face with some really important meetings that are heavy with parents. Like we need to have that relationship piece. And so I think that is a win, right? One of the things that COVID did, though, is it really, we've had some, I would call them fault lines in education. And COVID really hit those weak spots and kind of broke us there a little bit. And so when you talk about alternative programming or attendance, some mental health supports, we're really good. We did an audit, our tier 3, what we talk about intense needs. And we do okay for most people, but there's this middle ground. If we can get to a little bit earlier to give them some supports before it's on fire, that's an area that we know that we need. We need some supports for those kids that are there in the middle, whether it be social emotional needs, whether it be academic needs. We knew that was there. And how do we do that within the general ed setting? That's part of Phoenix too, coming back to BHS. Again, we didn't know that years ago, but that's kind of othering. The number of parents I've heard say, I thought that was a problem school. That's where all the naughty kids are going. Right. No, the naughty kids don't go there because we don't have administrators there. We all keep everybody together, and it provides smaller environments because not everybody's going to work in a large company. Some people are going to work in small business. Well, that's kind of like schools. There are large companies and there are small companies. There's large schools and there's small schools. It's no different than being on a sports team. Phoenix is a team. Right? We all are here together. We're working towards our education. We're going to do it just a little bit different. There's going to be more application and a little more curiosity to be able to open up a world of learning. Some kids, though, they just want to sit down and they want to crank through their CS writing assignment. And that's great, too. Everything is great and everything has a place. How do we get kids what they need? So that's one thing that has really shown, and it's really caused us to, we got to figure this out. How are we going to do this? We were talking about summer school programming. Esther said specifically, we need to bring back the kids that have really struggled, and what does that look like? And we need to get field trips out again, experimental learning, get people out into the community. You're talking about cattle. We do have a farm to table class coming up. We're out on a dairy farm, a beef farm, and poultry, and they're also going to some local CSAs and some orchards, and they're doing fermentation, so they're making yogurt and pickling. And
wow.
Yeah, they're talking about waste management, and I mean, this is learning. This is exciting. Kids love it. Teachers love it. People are smiling.
And it's not in a book where all right, we're going to do the concept review here. Those final 4 questions at the end of the chapter. I mean, you get to go see, touch, feel, see somebody else's opinion, and they might be more receptive to it because it's not, Mrs. Hully or their teacher,
for sure,
or their mom and dad. It's somebody else, and okay, so
different voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think having had a few people from the school district on, and
which, by the way, don't lose this thought. Which, by the way, are some of our most best performing ones, and people comment we love it when you have the school on. We love it when you have the teachers on, the administrator, to tell those stories about their kids. It's because it's what they care about.
Right.
So
no, I think everybody's unique, right? You all bring something different to the table. Matt Lubin, Nick Gaida, Kris Thompson. I'm probably forgetting somebody. But there is also an underlying common theme of extreme passion and a love for children and their job. And so it's I don't want to call it you're all the same. You're not all the same. You all bring a unique element, but there is that one thing in common that you all share. And I think anybody who watches this should feel really, really good about what's happening at BHM, because it's pretty clear that you guys are killing it.
And we're hiring. I'm getting emotional now.
Yeah.
We got to hire more people like that, right?
Yeah.
We gotta find a way to bring people together so that we can collectively figure out how do we help each other get to where we need to get going. Because our life here, really, it's pretty brief. I mean, it goes pretty fast.
Yeah.
You guys, your dads, and it just what is the saying? The days go short. No, the days go fast and the years go long. Or
The days go
are
long.
long, years
Yes.
are short.
Thank you.
Yep.
Because it does. It goes fast. Here we're coming up on year 30 for me. I'm like, where did this go? And like some days I'm like, we just need the bell to ring.
Yeah.
We got to get some of these
Right.
kids home. It's time. Like we're all, it's like being a parent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important. Nick Miller had a question for us when he hired us. Do you want kids to like you? And he'd pause to see what you'd say. And then he'd say, why? Why is that important? And because you'll work hard for somebody that you like, but somebody that you don't like if they don't respect you, they don't see you, they don't see who you are, whatever. You're moving on. And so it's a question we still ask all of our teachers. That one stays the course. So that's the answer for anybody that's listening. You got a little bonus on the inside there.
Sneak peek.
Little
Yeah.
interview
Yeah.
tidbit right there.
Yeah.
So.
I honestly think I heard that for the first time my first day of my freshman year of high school is when they have everybody in, and it was Matt Lubin's first day in Buffalo. And I remember somebody stopped him in the hallway and asked him if he had a pass to be out in the hallway.
Right.
And he had to say, well, I'm a teacher here.
Well, then cut your hair.
But I just remember that. I don't know why. As a freshman in high school, he said it in front of the whole student body of, we ask every single teacher if they want to be liked by their students. And, there's nothing wrong. I think sometimes if I put myself in that chair, it's like, oh, shoot, what do they want to hear? No, I'm here to teach and, or yes, but I don't want them to think that we're buddies,
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great question, and I think it's awesome that it's still part of the process.
Yeah. Well, think about yourselves as dads. Like your kids come to school, you want them to like their teacher. I mean, because they're going to, you see that at home.
Yeah.
And you still got to hold them accountable. I mean, there's things that it's very much a mentoring, parenting role in education and letting kids grow and learn. And you kind of got to stand beside them as they're figuring things out, and then when they fail too, because you learn a lot from failing.
Right.
You do,
Yeah.
and that's the
And
beauty
it's
of
okay.
it. It's good.
It's okay to fail.
And then to get back up.
Yes.
It's if
Right.
you don't get back up, and that's the COVID piece, like you go back to that, like the getting back up. We got to get back on the pony. It's time. We got some work to do and life to be lived, so let's get going.
We'll talk about Owen and it was Elise that are the Hall of Fame Hall of Famers, which you look at those, you hear the stories from the teachers coming down, and then what's being produced on the leaders of it, and very, very wise from those two young individuals, which we had on a couple weeks ago, which was fantastic, but very just that the kids' point of view of there, which they appreciate that mutual respect, and it's easier to follow, and then become a leader at that point.
Right.
When it's kind of coming from a top down of a culture. Not a fan of the term culture, but it is a culture. Yeah.
It is culture, and that's something I think that we do pretty well at BHS and at Phoenix is the student teacher relationship, and I think the thing that we got to continue to work on is student to student. Neighbor to neighbor, and getting everybody back. I mean, we're all friends.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have different viewpoints, and we're all people.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Is I think and this is for all 250,000 listeners of ours, is I don't care if you disagree on something, have the conversation, and you know what, you might disagree. Don't walk away hating your neighbor just because they disagree. I mean that's kind of the most important thing. It's where you learn.
It is.
That's where the boundaries are made and broken of just like, oh,
Right.
Never thought of it that way.
It's just like
know?
your family. There's days you get along with your siblings and days you don't. You don't always agree with your parents, but at the end of the day, you're still family.
Yep.
And that's really where we're at as a society. I mean, we got one place to share. Let's figure it out.
Right.
Life is short, and
It is.
we'll live pretty close together. So can we at least get along a little bit? So,
Yeah.
as we're winding down, is there something that you want to tell the community and anything? Just kind of leaving their words of wisdom, your words of wisdom to them.
Well, I don't know if I have any words of wisdom.
Well, I'll make something up.
Okay. Well,
Wing it.
I don't know. Reach out and talk to people.
Yeah.
People have got great stories to share, and you will always, there's something that you have in common with people, and most people are good. And celebrate that. And we get to decide the story that we tell. And again, it's short, so I'm telling a good one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you might find out somebody's dad is a cattle
Buyer.
and then you call a podcast and you say, "Get Kris Thompson out
Right.
here." And it's like,
That
well,
is
yeah,
so funny.
duh.
Yeah.
And again, well, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks
Wish you
for
the best of
having
luck in to year 31.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. And again, a reminder, if you have any suggestions as guests or topics for the Buffalo Community Podcast, go ahead and call our phone number at 612-405-7993. That's one of the reasons Kris is here today. But for the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reiss.
I'm Mark Benzer.
Kris Thompson.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlund Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.